Hello everyone, so I want to talk about this that we hear at the moment from the Irish government. And there's two things about this we have to talk about. Now there's two sides of it. And we have to kind of discuss it, I suppose. Because I'm kind of in the middle when it comes to this. And I'll explain why now in a second. When this is to do with nuclear power. Now as you know, Ireland basically has thrown itself off a cliff in terms of energy. We import about 80% of our electricity from England and from other places too. But basically the majority of energy that's produced in this country goes towards the data centres. Because as you know, 80% is a lot. It's a lot. We rely a lot on other countries and rely a lot on the other places. Outside of Ireland, Ireland only produces about 20% of its own power. And then of course it's used by the data centres. So the power that we do produce goes straight into the data centres. And of course that's very concerning. So the government are talking about, and this was in the 90s too, they wanted to have a data centre. Not a data centre, they wanted to build a nuclear power plant down in Wexford, I think it was, and of course there was objections because the environmental risk, etc. Now on the one hand, because this is how it gets complicated, because I'm kind of in the middle on this. What I mean by that is, on the other hand, we have a government at the moment that is anti-Irish, that hates the Irish people, that hates everything to do with this country. You're saying that they care about people, let's put it that way. And second of all to that point is, you see the National Children's Hospital, you see the bicycle shed, you see these projects that cost trillions of euro, billions of euro, that's just been fucked at the project, that's overspent, etc. So imagine how much it would cost to build a nuclear power plant, and imagine how much it would cost and how many years it would take, because it would fucking be insane. It'd probably be the most expensive nuclear power plant in the world, because we managed to do with the Children's Hospital, the most expensive hospital in the world. So think about that for a second. So you could probably do it again with the nuclear power plant. It probably costs a 50 trillion euro probably to build, because let's be fair, it is incompetence at the highest level. And of course the people that would get the contracts would be related to the government somehow, and it would take 50 years for them to build it, and it would cost the arm and the leg. And then again, you have to remember too, that even the power that is produced with the nuclear power plants, if we did have one, it all probably would go to data centres. It wouldn't go to help the Irish people. It wouldn't reduce the bills of the Irish people, if that makes any sense, because it would go to the data centres. That's where the majority power would go, because there's so many data centres in this country, it's eating up the country's power pretty much. So pretty much every bit of power that be produced by the nuclear power, and it produces a lot, it would be used for the data centres, because there'd be and then there'd be more built too as soon as it's built. So in that hand too, you have that, and not even that too. It's just the safety issue too, and this is the other thing, is the safety issue. Can you trust this government? I couldn't trust them to run a cafe, let alone a nuclear power plant. So, you couldn't trust them, because they nearly would blow the half of the country up. And they really would if they got away with it to be done as the government. Because they're already blowing Irish people out of it. They're already sending Irish people away. Like forcing people to immigrate and stuff. Because they can't get jobs and stuff. So there's nothing really stopping them if they wanted to blow up half of the country. Because they nearly would do it just to despise the Irish people, really, in a way. They nearly would. They wouldn't put it past them. On the other hand, this is the positive side. That it might be beneficial to the state. Of course, nuclear power produces a lot of electricity, but this is the other side of it. That it will be good for the state if we did get nuclear power. It would, in theory, again, this is all you have to remember. In theory, put the price of electricity down. In theory, but in reality, not the case. Probably, even if it was. In theory, and again, of course, then we can be our own independent. Be independent. We wouldn't have to rely on other countries if, say, God forbid, something did happen, and rely on other countries full stop. We would have our own supply. We would have our own, own way ourselves alone. So that's the plus side. But in reality, I don't know. To be totally honest, I don't know what. I'm kind of in the middle, as I say. Because if they did say start building it next week, right, this nuclear power, wherever they were going to put it, it would cost 100 probably trillion. It would take probably 50 years, and it'd be probably the place that is building the National Children's Hospital, building it, and it'd probably take another 100 years. So I'd be long dead and buried by that time. But no, it is the truth, because I don't know. You couldn't trust the state at the moment to do anything. So and they can't build a bicycle shed, they can't build a children's hospital, they can't build a security hut without it costing the arm and a leg. So God forbid how much a nuclear power plant would cost, because it would be insane. And who's going to run it? Because Ireland never had any nuclear facilities before, any kind of nuclear things. Usually majority of countries that you have nuclear power plants, etc., that have experience with it. Like, to be totally honest, there's no Irish people that would be that experienced in nuclear physics and stuff. There'd be very few. We would barely get probably 5 in the whole country. So that means you would have to import people to look after the nuclear power plant, because again, the reality is it is dangerous. It's beneficial for a country and stuff. It sustains the country, it does. But it can easily go wrong. We've seen that in Chernobyl. Like, there's huge dangers around it, radiation, etc. The smallest problem could cause a big reaction. And it is dangerous, but I don't know, it's hard to know. To be totally honest, as I say, I'm in the middle. Just barely, because I couldn't trust the government to build it. Because it could cost, it cost an arm and a leg, like, quite literally. It cost 70 arms and legs. But, I suppose I'm being a bit pessimistic about this. But I'm kind of looking at a reality. Because at the end of the government said, if we get our own electricity, if we have our own nuclear power plant, we could put that, the bills can go down to the Irish people, be cheap. But, anything they say, you have to take with a pinch of salt. Because if they said the water was wet, I still wouldn't believe them. Let's put it that way. Because you couldn't trust these lunatics, Micheál Martin, Simon Harris. You couldn't really trust them. You couldn't trust them even if they give you €1 trillion each. You still couldn't trust them, because they have, they nearly would sell out the whole, they would sell, already selling out the whole country, but they nearly would use every bit of that nuclear power to give it to the data centres, to give it to other countries for free. That's nearly what they would do. Out of the backs of the Irish people, they nearly would, because let's be fair, as Micheál Martin says, we don't want it backwards looking at your sovereignty. So you have to question why are they doing this? What is the goal here? And you could say it's to reduce Ireland's dependency on internet, getting electricity from the outside, etc. That's fair enough. But we had so much electricity back in the day. We still could have so much electricity now. But the simple reality is they built hundreds of wind turbines around the place, and they produce fuck all electricity. And they got rid of tough power plants and etc. Like in China, there's no such thing as they get rid of the coal power plants, etc. So we kind of pushed ourselves into a hole, if that makes sense. That's in that regard. But anyway, let me know what you think. I know a lot of people are in the middle. I know some people are very in favour of it, and fair enough. Like some people, it's good that Ireland is finally doing this for the future, and I understand that to a certain degree. But at the same time too, you couldn't trust them, and that's just being straight up with you. But again, as I say, people have their own opinions of this. But I'd just say I'm kind of in the middle. I don't know, to be totally honest. I don't know what's the best solution for the country. And then there's the environmental impact too. We talked about that earlier on. But it's hard to know how much of an effect it would have in the natural environment around the nuclear power. Say if it was in Westmeath or something like that, it's hard to know. It would have to be away from a lot of people. In case something did go wrong, it would have to be pretty much in the middle of nowhere if possible. Because, the dangers would be significant to people if something did happen. Anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more. Bye.